I've been driving Uber for a couple of years now, mostly weekends, sometimes late nights if I need extra cash. I've picked up drunks, people crying after breakups, even a guy who tried to bring a goat once. But what happened 2 months ago still keeps me up at night. It was a Saturday night, close to 1:30 in the morning. The streets were wet from a light rain, and I was ready to call it quits when a ride request came through. Pickup location: Hollow Creek Apartments. Drop-off: Hillvale Road, about 40 minutes away, deep in the countryside. The name said Claire. When I pulled up, the place looked abandoned. No lights, no cars, just the faint hum of street lamps buzzing overhead. I texted her, "Hey, I'm outside." No response. After about a minute, I saw a woman walk out from the shadows between two buildings. She was wearing a long brown coat and carrying a small duffel bag. She didn't wave or smile, just walked straight to the car, got in, and said softly, "Thank you for waiting." Her voice was calm, too calm. "No problem," I said. "You headed home?" She didn't answer, just stared out the window, clutching the bag tight. I started driving. The GPS route took us through long, dark roads with barely any streetlights. About 10 minutes in, I noticed the signal bars on my phone dropped to 0. No service. That wasn't unusual in that area, but it made me uneasy. For a while, we drove in silence. Then, out of nowhere, she said quietly, "Do you believe in spirits?" I chuckled nervously. Can't say I've met one." She didn't laugh. Her reflection in the window didn't move. She said, "Sometimes they need help finding their way home." I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded and kept driving. When we hit a bend in the road, the GPS suddenly froze. The arrow on the map stopped moving. I tried restarting it, but it wouldn't reload. "Hey, I lost the signal," I said. "Can you tell me where to turn next?" She turned slowly, looking at me with eyes that seemed hollow. "You'll know when we get there," she whispered. That's when I started to feel it. The temperature in the car dropped, like the air conditioner had kicked on full blast. My breath fogged the windshield. I looked in the rearview mirror, and for a second, I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. Her reflection wasn't there. I blinked hard, looked again. She was sitting right there behind me, but the mirror showed nothing. My stomach dropped. I tried to stay calm, pressing the gas a little harder. "Look," I said, "I think I'm gonna turn around. I can't get the GPS to work and—" She cut me off softly. "It's just up ahead." We drove another half mile before she said, "Stop here." There was nothing around us, just trees, fog, and a narrow dirt path leading into the woods. "You sure?" I asked. She nodded. "This is home." I didn't want to argue. She opened the door, stepped out slowly, and started walking toward the trees. Her footsteps didn't make a sound. She disappeared into the fog. I waited. A minute. Then 2. Finally, I got out with my phone flashlight and called out, "Claire?" No response. The only thing I found near the edge of the trees was her duffel bag. It was soaked from the rain. When I opened it, my blood ran cold. Inside was a driver's license. The photo was hers, but the name wasn't Claire. It was Lydia Brooks. And the date of death listed on the obituary I found later that night, 3 years ago. She'd been murdered near Hillvale Road, found buried under a collapsed cabin in the woods. I reported it to the police, showed them the exact location. They went out there the next day. They told me there was no sign of a woman, no footprints, no bag, nothing, just tire tracks. Mine. And when I checked the Uber app, there was no record of the ride. It was like she'd never existed. Now, every time I drive past that stretch of road, my signal drops to 0, just like that night. And for a few seconds, I swear I can smell rain and old perfume in the back seat. I've been driving Uber for almost 4 years now. I've picked up all kinds of people, drunk partiers, tired nurses, lonely travelers. But one night last winter, I picked up someone I still can't explain. It was around 3:10 in the morning, my last ride before heading home. The request came from a dark stretch of highway outside the city, an old rest stop that hadn't been open in years. Normally I would have skipped it, but it was on my route home, and the name on the app said, Mara. When I pulled up, I didn't see anyone. The gas pumps were rusted, the windows boarded up. Then my headlights caught movement. A woman stepped out from behind the vending machines. She was tall, maybe mid-30s, wearing a dark coat and no umbrella, even though it was raining. She didn't wave, didn't run, just walked slowly toward the car. When she opened the door, she didn't say a word, just climbed in, shut it, and sat directly behind me. "Hey there," I said, glancing in the mirror. "You Mara?" She nodded once. Her hair was soaked, dripping down over her face. Her eyes looked empty. I started the ride. Her destination was about 40 minutes north, a remote area near the woods. The pin dropped on a road called Pine Hill. We drove in silence for a while. The only sound was the rain and the tires hissing against the pavement. Then, after about 10 minutes, she spoke softly. "Can you turn the heat down? It's too warm." I did. Even though it was freezing outside, she sounded like she meant it. That's when I noticed something strange. In the rearview mirror, her seatbelt wasn't on. And her clothes. They didn't look wet anymore. Her coat and her hair, bone dry. I brushed it off. Maybe I was imagining things. But then she said, "You still live off Maple Street?" I froze. That was my street. I hadn't told her where I lived. I forced a laugh. Yeah. How do you know that?" She didn't answer, just smiled. A cold wave ran through me. I asked, "Have we met before?" She said, "Once. You gave me a ride home. You didn't stop when I asked you to." Her words didn't make sense. "I think you've got the wrong driver," I said quickly. But she leaned forward, close to my ear, and whispered, "No. You were the last person I ever saw." Every instinct in me screamed to pull over. Before I could, the headlights flickered. The GPS froze. The air in the car grew heavy, thick. I looked in the mirror again. She was gone. The back seat was empty. I slammed the brakes, jumped out, looked around. Nothing. Just rain and darkness. The doors were locked. No footprints. No sound. When I got back in, the Uber app said, "Ride completed. Destination reached." Only, I was parked in the middle of an empty road. I zoomed in on the map. The pin had moved. It no longer said Pine Hill Road. It said Maple Street Cemetery. I drove straight home. Didn't look back once. The next morning, I checked my trip history. No record of Mara, no payment, no ride. Out of curiosity, I searched her name online. The first result made my stomach drop. Mara L., 33 years old, found dead on Pine Hill Road after a hit-and-run 3 years ago. She'd been walking home late at night when an unidentified driver struck her and never stopped. I still don't know why she chose me, but sometimes, when I drive late, I catch myself glancing in the rearview mirror, and I swear, I see her sitting there again, quiet, watching, waiting for another ride home. We trust strangers with our lives every time we get into an Uber, but I'll never forget the night I realized my driver wasn't taking me home. He was taking me somewhere else. It was a Friday night, late. I had been out with friends downtown, and instead of driving, I called for an Uber. The app showed a silver sedan with a driver named Mike. He had hundreds of rides and a nearly perfect rating, so I didn't think twice. When the car pulled up, I confirmed the license plate matched. The driver leaned over, smiled, and said, "For Alex?" I nodded and got in. The car smelled faintly of cologne and cleaning supplies. normal enough. For the first few minutes, everything felt routine. We made small talk, where I worked, how the night had been. But then I noticed we weren't taking the usual route. Instead of heading toward the freeway, he turned down a side street. "Traffic's heavy up ahead," he said casually, eyes on the road. "This way's faster." I wanted to believe him, but the streets grew darker, emptier. No lights, no businesses, just stretches of road lined with trees. I glanced at my app. It showed a completely different route than the one we were on. I think you missed a turn," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He didn't answer. He just kept driving. My heart rate picked up. I watched the little blue dot on the map drifting farther from my destination. I repeated myself, louder this time. "You're going the wrong way." That's when he locked the doors. I heard the distinct click of every latch sealing shut. The air in the car grew suffocating. I tried to stay calm, fumbling with my phone to hit the emergency button in the app. But the signal dropped. No service. He finally spoke. "Don't worry. I just need to make a quick stop first." His tone was flat, like he wasn't even pretending anymore. We drove for what felt like forever, deeper into nowhere. I could see nothing but trees through the window. My mind raced. Do I jump out at the next stop sign? Do I try to grab the wheel? My hands were shaking. Then, I noticed something. On the dashboard, a phone was mounted, but it wasn't the Uber driver's app. It was a GPS leading somewhere else entirely. I swallowed hard and decided to take a risk. "I'm sharing my trip with my friends," I lied. "They're tracking me live. If I don't get home in 10 minutes, they'll call the cops." He didn't say anything at first. The silence was worse than if he had threatened me. Then, suddenly, he turned off the dark road and onto a busier street, merging with traffic. The lights of the city appeared in the distance, and the familiar route popped back onto my app. He pulled up in front of my apartment building without a word. My hands trembled as I unlocked the door and stepped out. Before I shut it, he leaned slightly toward me, eyes cold in the rearview mirror. "You shouldn't ride with strangers," he said. Then he drove off. I stood frozen on the sidewalk, stomach twisted in knots. I checked the Uber app again. My trip history showed nothing, no record of that ride. It was like it had never happened. I reported it to Uber, but their reply was chilling. "We have no driver by that name or license plate on our platform." To this day, I don't know who I got into the car with that night. All I know is that he knew my name, my destination, and he almost took me somewhere I would never have come back from.